Our theme this month is the light of the world, and our topic today is the meaning of solstice in Christmas. So now that we are deeply into the Christmas season, I want to continue to present to you another way that humanity expresses the light that is created and shared by our source of being, demonstrated around and through each one of us. So what do you know about the word solstice? The word solstice itself refers to either of the two times per year, the summer solstice and the winter solstice, when the sun reaches its highest or lowest point in the sky at noon, and it marks the longest and the shortest day in the year. We're approaching the winter solstice, which here in the islands is on December 21st, which is next Saturday. And that is the shortest day as defined on the 365 day per year Gregorian calendar, which is used throughout most of the world now. So what? So what does that matter to us? Well, if you've finished your Christmas shopping, it probably means you won't have to go out in the dark to do that anymore. And if you've got your outdoor Christmas lights on the house, the trees, the bushes, the lighted characters out in the yard, all of that out and working, then you don't have to struggle with that in the dark either. You may have noticed in recent weeks that it's getting dark earlier in the day than earlier in the year. In fact, today the sun will set at 5:45 p.m. as opposed to 7:16 p.m. on June 21st, which was the summer solstice, the longest day in the year in 2019. Pure fact here now. No daylight savings time included there to factor in here in Hawaii. So for the most part, in today's world, there really isn't a lot of attention paid to any serious, frightening, or special meanings to the solstice, beyond its recognition probably on the news that day. But back in ancient times, back in the pagan days, the winter solstice was referred to as Yule, and it was a celebration of the goddess Moon and the energy from that. It's been celebrated and revered in ancient civilizations, indigenous cultures, and various religions, and all of which have their own rituals for taking advantage of what has been labeled as the unique energy. In today's world, most of the information regarding the solstice appears on the web, the World Wide Web, through astrologers and those into New Age ideas. But that doesn't alter the occurrence of the solstice twice a year. However, it does encourage very creative ideas about its purpose and or its meaning. Dr. Raymond Anderson, who is the senior minister at our Center for Spiritual Living in Baltimore, Maryland, spoke about this very thing last week in his topic titled, "Some Rain Must Fall." So as we transition into how we can benefit from understanding the flow of light in the universe and which that flow of light expresses by means of each one of us in some way, I'd like to share with you some of Reverend Anderson's thoughts. The winter solstice, he said, historically has been that time when many people of various cultures and communities were confronted with darker, colder, more challenging times. Even then, there was great concern, and still today in some cultures, they find this at this time of the year that this is emotionally difficult for them. The winter solstice is also symbolically a time when dark and light reside in a state of perfect balance, like yin and yang. Sunrise and sunset are but two distinct experiences based upon where you are at a particular time of the day in the Earth's rotation. So it's not simultaneous globally. In reality, though, the sun never rises or sets. It remains just as it is, just as does the truth of our being remain steadfast. At the moment of winter solstice, light and dark are perfectly balanced. For the ancient people, the first months of the winter were often difficult. As it got darker and colder, food became scarce. So celebrating the triumph of light over the increasing darkness gave these ancient peoples hope. Even today, Dr. Anderson continued, we use the phrase being in the dark to describe current day matters of discomfort, confusion, maybe even ignorance. Being in the dark is also often synonymous with being exposed to one's fears. Ernest Holmes, in his book, Ernest Holmes Speaks, published in 1926, shares this with us. It is in this moment of time that we are to make the great decisions. It is in this day in which we are now living that we must choose what path we are to follow. Shall we live in fear or in faith? Shall we live in confusion or in the peace that comes from a deep and abiding conviction that there is a power greater than we are, ready, willing, and able to work for us? We can use the winter solstice and its message in the coming light as it presents to us the opportunity to give thanks for the year that is now completing itself, to remember our loved ones, past and present, and to shine a light for the year ahead. So here's a story that comes to us from the book titled The Art of Being. And the story is titled, Good Things Can Grow in the Dark. Dennis opened the door and stepped into the darkness of his kitchen pantry in order to grab his box of Cheerios for breakfast one morning. He looked down and he noticed a bag of potatoes on the floor, and it had been sitting there on the floor for several weeks. So upon closer examination, he could see that most of those potatoes in that bag had begun to push out little sprouts. As any potato aficionado knows, the sprouts are an indication that that potato is trying to grow. Even the darkness of a pantry can't stop it from doing so. It's well documented that if one wants to see the spud sprout rapidly, all one needs to do is place it in the light. Keeping them in the dark slows down the process, but even in total darkness, there is something within the potato that knows it's supposed to seek growth and expansion despite its poor growing conditions. For those of you who are Wayne Dyer followers, you will remember what he called that. He called that the future pull And therein lies the message. As strange as this may sound to you, you and I have a great deal in common with the potato. That same something lies within each one of us and is constantly seeking growth and expansion through us. Even in our darkest of times, it can't stop from having its way. The primary difference is that the potato has no choice in the matter, whereas it appears that we think we do. For our purposes here, the darkness can symbolize challenging times, or it can simply represent the unknown. Often, we seek perfect growing conditions before we sprout any new life. We prefer the comfort of being able to see where we are and how we're growing. Wouldn't it be great if all of our growth activities and opportunities came in times of light, love, blue skies, green traffic signals? Wouldn't it be great if it always felt good and we could totally see where we were going? But alas, unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. The reality is we are designed to grow one way or another. Our only choice is, will it be consciously or unconsciously? There can be great personal growth for us as we learn to consciously push out into that darkness as well as into the light. The truth is, some of our most meaningful personal growth can be stimulated when life appears to be at its darkest and most uncertain. The darkness doesn't seem to stifle the growth of the potato. And you know where mushrooms grow? Buried deep in a pile of manure. Perhaps nature's wisdom has much to teach us about growth. So perhaps as the winter solstice breaks upon us during this Christmas holiday time and the new year approaching, is it time for you to sprout some new growth? If the answer is yes, don't wait until growing conditions are perfect, whatever that is, whatever that means, because they seldom are. Don't turn away from your dark or uncertain times. Lean into them and invite the wisdom of the infinite presence to reveal the meaning and the purpose of the moment. Let the experience become your teacher. Push out into life and grow, regardless of the conditions, because that's why you're here, to evolve and to grow into the spectacular being that you are at the core of your being. At this time of the year, we have so many opportunities to give and to receive, so many opportunities to share the light of our joy and our abundance. Our good earth, its process in the universe, and how that shows up is doing that, just as it always does. In today's world, we have our own ways of demonstrating this in religious ceremonies, in stories of Santa Claus, St. Nicholas, Père Noël, Father Christmas, Babo Natali, Lukuslas, and a dozen other names for Santa Claus that I can't pronounce. But country after country has that representation at this time of the year. But here's one I can pronounce, and it's right here in Hawaii. It's Kanaka Loka. Kanaka Loka. So what's your story? What's your message to the world? What do you stand for? Are you committed to living it 24/7? Irrespectable to who you are, or who you're with, or where you are. How do you choose to celebrate the message every day, every year, like clockwork, like the earth goes through its cycle of light into darkness and back into the light? Because right here, right now, each one of us is making history, just like the people were in the ancient days. This is our time to be the light of the world. And so it is.